This is Hope Klein, and today I will be recording my negative rebuttal against Bradley Klein's affirmative rebuttal. To review, we are arguing whether or not we should develop the moon. My opponent's main arguments are the fact that we should develop the moon in specifically water and helium-3 for energy in order to help with the progression of colonizing the moon, to take that step forward. My opponent begins by defending his argument for the lunar flashlight mission, saying that NASA should fund and invest in its current plan to understand more about the state of the water on the moon. He says that there is some form of water on the moon, possibly in an icy, because of the Lunar Electron Spectrometer mission from NASA. He brings up the fact saying that I said that we don't know that there's water on the moon, and he's saying that because of the electron spectrometer mission from NASA, there is in fact water on the moon, and that is why his argument is superior. But I actually, in my when I was going against that, I didn't say that there was no water on the moon at all. I actually said that we don't know how much. It could be very little, so that it's not enough to sustain anything at all. But I did not say that we don't know that there is any water on the moon at all. I just said we don't know how much. So that was a little error in my opponent's argument. So he actually cannot rest his case on that, because I believe I said that we don't know how much, not that we don't know whether water exists on the moon at all. Going on to mine and his next main point, he argues for helium-3, saying that there is more helium-3 on the moon, and it is available as a clean energy source. He says that any sort of colonization or further moon development is going to need water and energy, and it's already on the moon. He brings up the fact that I argue that the abundance of helium-3 isn't significant enough to make a difference, and for Earth to adopt it, it wouldn't make a difference unless it was accepted globally. So he defends his argument by saying that we don't need the Earth to accept it, we need the moon to incorporate it. My response to that is the fact that, first off, number one, the actual amount of helium-3 on the moon is not that much. There's actually only a few particles per ton of moon, so it would still require there's not actually that much helium-3 on the moon. It's not just like it's still in the surface. So I'm just wondering where your sources are for where you found out that there actually is enough helium-3 on the moon. And that concludes that section of the argument. Where are your sources? In mine and my opponent's third main point, he brings up the fact that the U.S. should develop the moon in general. He reminds us that my response to that argument was where I said that the potential, I gave the example of the fact that when Europe came to America, there were so many wars that happened, and so much, there was no peace among the countries when there was a new place and everybody was trying to fight over who it belonged to. And I said, how would we maintain stable moon peace? Because the moon doesn't belong to anybody specifically. How we need to work out those policies first in order to start going to the moon. He said that he agrees that humanity is not at peace right now, but he says that it shouldn't stop humanity from progressing, and that we can still develop our sciences and enter a new front with a new planet. And then he corrects himself, remembering that the moon is actually not a planet. But the thing is, although my opponent stated that my argument seemed as though it was not topical, I would argue that it is. The fact that we can't just ignore what's happening right now and just continue to go on. We can't, if we ignore it, nothing's going to get fixed. Things will just stay the same here on Earth. I understand that your argument is focusing solely on the development of the moon. We only want helium-3's energy for the moon. We only want water for the moon. We only want to develop the moon for the sake of the moon, and not really, he says that it's like developing the moon is going to help us progress humanity, but how will we progress humanity if we're not taking care of what's here on Earth? Even if we do go forth with the moon, I think that we should still focus on both things, what's going on here on Earth and what's going on the moon. Another argument I have against my opponent's plan is the fact that, according to NASA, it is extremely expensive to go to the moon, and that's one of their main concerns, is that how will they find the budget to build that rocket, because we haven't been to the moon since the 70s, and now all of a sudden my opponent is arguing that we should actually colonize the moon when we've only been there once as humans. So that's another thing, is I feel like we need to do a lot more research before jumping straight into going right to the moon. Thank you. That concludes my argument.